Hey, Howard here at 82 Maple, and it's a winter's day, but that's not stopping the ducks who will show up in this frame very, very shortly. But I want you to know that I've got 8 questions and/or comments for the Chinese manufacturer of this amazing little mini excavator. So here goes, and I'm going to be referring to my list. You do know that equipment operators can have big feet, right? Oh, that's cramped. And how can I operate this without having 4 hands? I might actually want to travel at the same time I'm using my swing or boom controls. How do I do that? Why did my machine suddenly shut down right in the middle of a swing motion? Oh, what an odd place for a shut-off switch. And is that the cleanup bucket that just bumped my boom cylinder? No, I've got my normal bucket on here, but below the guard, you'll see where my cleanup landscape bucket hit the boom cylinder with some force. Now, how exactly do I tell if there's any fuel in this thing? No fuel gauge. And speaking of fuel, why does it always smell like raw diesel in here? Ugh, man. You know what? I know it's not a warm day today, but on a warm day, I'm going to bake in here. Why is there no ability to remove this door? And lastly, why do I need to shut this off pretty much every time I go to get out of the cab? Stay tuned. I have all of my responses and next actions, some of which might surprise you, coming right up. Okay, hey, you know what? I'm not complaining, because I saved $40,000 to $50,000 off the price of a comparable machine had I got it from one of the more well-known North American based dealerships, manufacturers, or distributorships. And all I want to say is that when you save $40,000 or $50,000, you're going to have to tolerate a few things. For one, I have to tolerate a cramped foot box. These are size 10 boots, but you know what? Going directly to my point about how do I travel and use my boom and bucket and swing controls, well, it makes it pretty handy. I can just wedge my toes and there we go. I've got my travel controls. I'm using my bucket. I'm using my boom. And no, these aren't travel pedals. This one is for closing my thumb. This one is for swinging the boom, independent of the house. And yes, I need to just be a little more careful while I'm in the cab so I don't let my feet keep moving around here and bumping the shutoff switch. I spent a good 30 minutes one day looking around under the hood, looking for this and that and the other. What on earth could have caused my machine to shut down so quickly? I'm not out of fuel, before taking a look over, and yes, I had bumped the switch into the off position. Easy to do. And you know what? As far as using the landscape and cleanup bucket and letting it bump the boom, hey, that's operator error. I need to be a little bit more careful around that. Am I used to a machine biting itself? No, but can I work with it? You bet I can. And no, there is no fuel gauge. But you know what? My 1953 Ferguson tractor doesn't have a fuel gauge either. All it takes is I just pasted a little envelope here to the window and says something like hour meter reading when last fueled. I've got 21 hours on the machine. I know I last fueled it at 20.5 hours. I've got a perfectly good hour meter right here. It's not on right now. There it is, 21.1 hours reading upside down. And I know that I can get a good 3 hours of operating. This machine is very frugal on fuel. It's got a 10-liter tank that lasts for 3 hours. Hey, set a timer just like we do for everything else in life. And you know what? There's a nifty little bonus. It's like for my 25K, on this machine, I bought a time travel machine. It takes me right back to 1972 when I used to have to take the door off the machine that I was operating, a Clark forklift with a 20,000-pound capacity, on a hot summer day to get some breeze in here. And what I'm going to have to do is just take a hacksaw, nip off the bottom of these pins, pop them out, and just like I would for any household door, and I can lodge the door somewhere safe and secure for the summer. Back to the little fuel thing and my time machine travel. Yeah, that 53 Ferguson had no fuel gauge. We actually had to check the fuel every once in a while. And you know what? Who needs a machine to do all the thinking for them? I can use the distraction of thinking about my fuel. I think distractions are what prevent Alzheimer's and dementia and stuff like that. Hey, I need all of that help that I can get. Oh yeah, and just before we leave the situation about the fueling and that smell of diesel in here, yeah, so when I go to add hydraulic oil, this is where I add it. When I go to add diesel, this is where I add it. And all I need to do is just take a little care, not overflow that 10-liter tank. It's not a 10-gallon tank. And just wipe the end of the nozzle or hold this over the end of the nozzle while I remove the fueling hose. Again, not a big deal. It's just different. It's not worse. And lastly, the virtual non-existence of a hydraulic lockout. Hey, there, we're back into the time travel machine, going back to the 60s and 70s when machines didn't have to protect us from ourselves, when they didn't do all of the thinking for us. You know what? That old 53 Ferguson tractor, and in fact, the much newer 2018 John Deere 1025 have hydraulic levers that you can bump while you're getting on or off. And so the prudent person just shuts the machine off. Nothing wrong with that. You know what? I just don't see any of the issues that I've just mentioned as downsides when I've saved another $40,000 in my retirement or travel fund. And again, for something that I'm using less than 100 hours a year, I'll put up with all of this and more. And if I'm using this more than 100 hours a year, I'll put up with all of this and more as well, because that'll mean that all of these little things that you might term or that I might term as idiosyncrasies, well, I'll now have a memory reflex around all of those things, so no worries about that either. Here we go, and get ready for this. We're just on the path to having too much fun.
Too much fun!